Every man walks through life believing he hides his weakness well. He wears confidence like armor, he polishes his words, he flexes his achievements, and he believes, foolishly, that what he shows is all she sees. But women, they are not blind. They are predators of the unseen. They don't watch your armor. They study the cracks. They don't care about the story you tell. They care about the silence between your words. And here's the brutal truth no man wants to face. She sees your weakness long before you do. She sees it in the way your eyes hesitate when you speak of your future. She sees it in how quickly you rush to please, to prove, to validate yourself. She sees it in your hunger. Not the hunger of ambition, but the hunger of needing her approval just to feel whole. This is the hidden weakness. It's not about muscles. It's not about money. It's not about status. It's the invisible ache inside you, the fear of being unwanted, the fear of being left behind, the fear that without her gaze, without her touch, without her validation, you are nothing. And she knows it. She feels it like blood in the water. And if you've ever wondered why women lose respect for men so quickly, why they grow cold without explanation, why they play games and twist emotions, it is because they sense this weakness and they know how to exploit it. But before you drown in despair, listen carefully. Because what I'm about to tell you is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to awaken you. You see, this weakness is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the mirror that shows you the man you truly are beneath the mask. And the greatest mistake you can make is to hide it, suppress it, or pretend it doesn't exist. For what is hidden controls you, but what is embraced transforms you. When a woman sees your weakness, she tests it. She pushes, she pulls, she plays. Not always out of cruelty, but out of instinct. She is searching for stability, for strength, for the man who will not shatter when pressed. And if you collapse, she takes control. If you stand, calm, composed, aware of your weakness yet unmoved by it, she feels something she cannot explain. Respect. Because the man who owns his weakness cannot be manipulated by it. And the man who transforms it into power becomes untouchable. Think of the philosophers who walked this path before you. Marcus Aurelius, writing his meditations in the solitude of his mind, admitted his vulnerabilities not as shame, but as discipline. Nietzsche, in his darkness, understood that suffering was not to be erased, but embraced as the forge of greatness. Even the Stoics, often misunderstood as emotionless, were not detached because they felt nothing, but because they had mastered the fire within. That is your path. Not to deny your weakness, not to mask it with arrogance or false bravado, but to look at it so deeply, so fearlessly, that it no longer owns you. And once you do, the very thing she thought she could exploit becomes the thing that draws her deeper into your gravity. Because what is more dangerous than a man who cannot be broken by his own flaws? What is more intoxicating than a man who turns his wounds into weapons? What is more unforgettable than a man who stares at his weakness, smiles, and says, "Thank you"? This is where the game changes. This is where you stop being the hunted and become the hunter. But before we get there, you must understand exactly how she exploits these hidden cracks in your armor, and why most men never even realize it until it's too late. Stay with me, because what comes next may sting, but it will also set you free. First, a woman does not conquer you with force. She does not need weapons or armies or power in the way men imagine it. Her battlefield is subtle. Her strategy is silence. Her weapon is the weakness you try so desperately to bury. Men think they are logical creatures, driven by strength and reason. Yet in the presence of a woman, logic often collapses into instinct, and strength becomes a theater act. She knows this. She has studied this for centuries, not in textbooks, but in her very survival. She tests. That is her first move. Not openly, not directly, but in whispers of behavior that only the awake can see. She might delay her reply, not because she forgot, but because she wants to measure the desperation in your waiting. She might withdraw her warmth, not because she lost interest, but because she wants to see how quickly you will chase. She might hint at another man, not because she loves him, but because she wants to know how easily your heart fractures under the pressure of imagined competition. These are not coincidences. They are controlled experiments. And the laboratory is your soul. When she notices your eyes flicker at the mention of another man's name, she smiles inside. When she feels you bending over backwards to keep her attention, she marks you. When she hears you over-explaining yourself, pouring words where silence would have been enough, she knows. You are not leading, you are following. And once she sees the crack, she presses harder. This is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It is instinct. A woman, even unknowingly, seeks to anchor herself to strength. She is drawn to it, intoxicated by it, dependent on it. And when she finds weakness, she will test it, exploit it, and use it to establish control. How does she exploit it? Through rhythm, through control of access, through the art of giving and withdrawing. She gives you a taste of validation, a look, a smile, a touch. Then she withdraws. She watches the hunger in your reaction, the unease in your silence, the storm in your emotions. And like a scientist observing a specimen, she learns exactly which buttons to press and when. This is why you feel addicted to her presence. It is not just love. It is not just attraction. It is conditioning. She rewards, then she withholds. She builds, then she destabilizes. She turns your hidden weakness into a leash, invisible but unbreakable. And the deeper you fall, the stronger her grip becomes. Because every act of overcompensation, every desperate attempt to prove yourself, every surrender to her emotional games, feeds her sense of power. Think of it like this. You imagine you are chasing her affection. In truth, she is chasing the proof of your weakness. And once she captures it, she no longer sees you as the man she once desired. She sees you as a pawn in her silent game. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. But the tragedy of most men is that they surrender their mind first. They let her define their worth, control their emotions, dictate their self-image. And in doing so, they hand her the keys to their kingdom. Understand this. A woman cannot truly exploit what you have already owned. She can only exploit what you deny. The fear you refuse to face, the insecurity you try to mask, the void you hope she fills. These are the cracks she slides her fingers into, slowly widening them until you no longer recognize yourself. And this is why so many men collapse in silence. They wonder, what did I do wrong? Why did she lose respect? Why did she turn cold? The answer is brutal but simple. She saw your weakness, and you pretended it wasn't there. She exploited the very thing you refused to acknowledge. But here's the twist you must not miss. This does not make her the villain. It makes her human. It makes her aligned with her own survival. For just as a man instinctively seeks opportunity, a woman instinctively tests security. The problem is not her testing. The problem is your blindness. Because when you are blind to your weakness, you cannot protect it. When you deny its existence, you give her total power over it. And in that blindness, you become the puppet in a play you never even knew you were acting in. Now, the question remains, will you keep pretending your weakness isn't there, letting her pull your strings until you break? Or will you finally turn and face the shadow within you and take back the control she thought she owned forever? The answer lies in what comes next. Part 2. The psychological analysis. Why women are drawn to weakness. To understand why women exploit the hidden weakness in men, we must dive beneath the surface of attraction into the deep waters of psychology. The ancient drives, the unspoken instincts, the shadows that govern human behavior. Women are not drawn to weakness because they love to see men suffer. It is far more primal, far more calculated, and far more instinctual than that. They are drawn to weakness because weakness is information. It tells her where you stand in the hierarchy of men. It tells her whether you are stable or fragile, whether you are worth following or abandoning. It tells her if she can trust her survival, her future, her lineage to the strength you claim to have. This is not romance. This is biology clothed in psychology. A woman's subconscious scans for security the way a predator scans for prey. Not because she is evil, but because her survival, for thousands of years, has depended on her ability to read men quickly and accurately. And the hidden weakness you deny? That is the first signal she picks up. Let us break it down. 1. The weakness is a signal of dependence. When a man needs validation to feel whole, he communicates dependence. He is no longer the source of his own stability. He becomes a child in a grown body, waiting for a mother's approval. A woman may at first indulge this, feeding his ego, but soon she grows restless. For instinct tells her, a dependent man cannot lead, cannot protect, cannot command. 2. The weakness as a loss of polarity. Masculine and feminine energies are built on polarity, the magnetic pull of opposites. When a man collapses into weakness, he slips unconsciously into the feminine role, reactive, emotional, unstable. A woman does not want to compete with his chaos. She wants to surrender into his stability. If he cannot provide that polarity, the attraction erodes like sand under waves. 3. The weakness as an invitation to test. Psychologists call it fitness testing. Philosophers might call it the eternal trial. A woman's probing, questioning, withdrawing. These are not random behaviors. They are subconscious experiments designed to reveal your strength. She does not ask directly, "Are you strong?" She tests it. She feels safer when she knows. And if your weakness shows, her respect dies quietly, long before her love does. Now consider this. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden aspects of ourselves that we deny, repress, and project. When you deny your weakness, you force it into the shadow, and what is buried in shadow always emerges in destructive ways. Women sense this. They may not know Jung, but they intuitively know that the man who cannot face his weakness will eventually be devoured by it. This is why she is drawn to test it. She wants to see, does he own his shadow, or does his shadow own him? Even the Stoics, often misunderstood as cold, taught this truth. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To be master of yourself means not hiding your weakness, but disciplining it, shaping it, turning it into strength. A woman sensing weakness is searching for that mastery. If she cannot find it, she takes control. But here is the darker layer, one that most men refuse to admit. Women are not only drawn to weakness to test it, some are drawn to it to exploit it deliberately, for there is power in control. And when she finds a man who cannot control his own need for her, she realizes she can shape him, mold him, bend him. She may not respect him, but she will use him. For resources, for attention, for comfort, for the quiet thrill of domination. And many men, blinded by their hunger for her validation, accept this role willingly. Slaves dressed as lovers. Nietzsche warned of this dynamic when he spoke of the will to power. Human beings are not satisfied with survival alone. They seek dominance, influence, control. Women too carry this will, and when they find weakness in men, they seize the opportunity to exercise it. But let us not turn bitter. let us turn wise. For the truth is this: if women are drawn to weakness, it is only because men refuse to confront it themselves. If you face your own weakness, own it, transform it. She cannot exploit it. The leash breaks. The game ends. The polarity restores itself. Imagine the difference. A man who hides his weakness is like a fortress with a crumbling wall, pretending it is strong. A woman approaches, taps it, and the wall collapses. She loses trust. She takes control. But a man who owns his weakness says, "Yes, this wall is cracked, and I have rebuilt it into something stronger." She tests, and he does not move. She withdraws, and he remains still. She provokes, and he smiles. Suddenly, she is no longer in control. Suddenly, she feels the pull of gravity, the respect, the mystery she cannot quite explain. That is the psychology at its core. She is drawn to weakness because it reveals whether you are real or pretending. And most men are only pretending. But you, if you understand this, if you awaken to this truth, can stop pretending. You can transform. You can become the man she cannot test, cannot break, cannot own. The hidden weakness will always be there. The question is, does it enslave you or empower you? Part 3, the dark transformation, how to turn weakness into power. Every man has a weakness. Deny it, and it owns you. Face it, and you own it. Transform it, and it becomes your power. The difference between the man who collapses under a woman's test and the man who commands her respect lies not in perfection, but in transformation. The first hides his flaws, the second weaponizes them. Understand this: weakness is not the enemy. The refusal to confront it is, and the refusal is precisely what gives women control. So how do you turn weakness into power? Step 1, radical exposure. You must drag your weakness out of the shadows. Write it down. Say it aloud. Look in the mirror and admit it. Do you fear abandonment? Do you need constant approval? Do you collapse when compared to other men? Whatever it is, name it. Because the moment you name it, it loses half its power. Women exploit what you deny. Once you admit it, there is nothing left to exploit. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is endurable, then endure it." Stop complaining. This is not self-pity, it is self-command. Endure your weakness by facing it without excuses. Step 2, turn pain into practice. Weakness always carries pain, shame, rejection, fear. Instead of running from it, lean into it. Transform it into fuel. The man abandoned learns self-reliance. The man humiliated learns silence and poise. The man compared learns how to dominate through mastery. This is alchemy, turning base metal into gold. The alchemy of the masculine spirit. Step 3, reframe the story. A weakness is not a flaw, it is a story. And whoever controls the story controls the meaning. If you say, "I am broken because she left me," you hand her the narrative. If you say, "She left me, and in that leaving I discovered my strength," you reclaim the power. Women cannot exploit a story you have already rewritten. They cannot use your scars if you wear them as armor. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Weakness is fate when unconscious. It is power when made conscious. Step 4, create the polarity. Masculinity is not the absence of weakness. It is the dominance over it. A woman respects not the flawless man, but the man who remains unmoved in his flaws. When she tests, you do not react. When she withdraws, you do not chase. When she provokes, you do not justify. That is polarity. That is leadership. That is the magnetic field that draws her feminine energy back into orbit around you. Step 5, use the darkness. Here is where transformation becomes dangerous and powerful. Weakness, once mastered, becomes a weapon. Your fear of abandonment becomes your ability to walk away first. Your need for validation becomes your refusal to beg for it. Your jealousy becomes your indifference to competition. Women cannot control a man who has nothing to lose. They cannot manipulate a man who has already faced his darkness. This is why men who embrace their flaws appear unshakable, almost untouchable. They radiate a calm strength, a quiet dominance, a presence that says, "Test me and you will fail." Nietzsche captured this when he wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But the true strength is not simply surviving pain. It is shaping it into an instrument. Think of your weakness as fire. Uncontrolled, it burns you alive. Controlled, it forges your steel. When you control your fire, women feel it. They sense the danger, the magnetism, the heat of a man who has seen his own abyss and did not collapse. They cannot exploit you because you have already exploited yourself. You have turned your inner chaos into order. And this terrifies them. Because now the power dynamic has shifted. No longer are you the man seeking her validation. You are the man she seeks validation from. No longer are you the one dancing to her rhythm. You are the one who dictates the tempo. No longer are you the man whose weakness betrays him. You are the man whose weakness has become his greatest weapon. This is the dark transformation, not hiding your weakness, but wearing it, not fearing your scars, but displaying them, not bowing under the test, but turning the test into a mirror that reflects her own fragility. Because here's the secret. When you own your weakness, the game ends. She cannot exploit what you have mastered. And in that mastery, you rise. Not just above her tests, but above your own illusions. The weak man denies. The average man hides. The powerful man transforms. Which one will you be? Part 4, the final control, how to make her orbit around you. Control is not about chains. It is not about begging, demanding, or forcing. Control is gravity, a silent pull that bends everything around it. Planets do not orbit the sun because the sun begs them to. They orbit because the sun is. This is what you must become. Not the man chasing, not the man proving, not the man negotiating. You must become the center of gravity, the force she cannot escape. But how do you do this? How do you make her orbit around you when for so long you have orbited around her? It begins with withdrawal. 1. The power of indifference. A man who cannot walk away is a man already owned. She senses it. She knows if your love is dependence or choice. And the more you cling, the more she resents. Why? Because clinging reveals weakness, and weakness invites exploitation. But the moment you demonstrate indifference, real indifference, not the fake posturing of a desperate boy, her psychology begins to bend. Women are addicted to attention, but they are enslaved by scarcity. When you pull back, she leans forward. When you grow silent, her mind screams. Your absence is louder than your words. This is why silence is a weapon. Not anger, not pleading. Silence. It says, "I am whole without you." And that statement is unbearable for the ego of the feminine. 2. The command of presence control is not only withdrawal, it is presence. When you are in the room, your energy must dominate. Not through loudness, not through arrogance, but through stillness. A lion does not roar constantly. He rests, watches, moves only when necessary. That is why the jungle obeys him. When you speak, speak with weight. When you move, move with intention. When you decide, decide without hesitation. Women orbit around men whose presence makes them feel both safe and challenged. Remember the words of Seneca, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Be the trial. Be the standard she must rise to. That is how she orbits you, not because you demand it, but because you set the field she cannot resist. 3. The reversal of validation. Most men chase female validation like a thirsty dog chases water. This is why they remain slaves. But the moment you reverse it, the moment she begins to chase your validation, the orbit is sealed. How do you do this? By making your validation rare, by ensuring that your approval means something, costs something, is earned. Do not shower her with attention, make her earn the smallest glance. Do not inflate her ego, challenge it. Do not lose yourself in her beauty. Remind her that beauty is common, but depth is rare. This is the paradox. When you stop validating her, she fights for your validation. When you stop giving freely, she pays in devotion. 4. The mastery of options control is also about leverage, and leverage comes from options. The man with no options is desperate. The man with many options is free. Women know this. They can feel it. If you are her only source of intimacy, you are weak. If you could walk into another life, another relationship, another reality tomorrow, you are untouchable. This is not about sleeping around. This is about embodying the man who could, but chooses not to. The man who is wanted, not the man who begs. Nietzsche wrote, "The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends." The true man must detach even from comfort. This detachment terrifies women because it makes you impossible to cage. 5. The psychological mirror. Here is the darkest truth. Women orbit men who reflect their own chaos back at them without being consumed by it. She tests, you remain still. She provokes, you smirk. She withdraws, you stay unmoved. Slowly, she realizes that her storm cannot move your mountain, and in that realization, she surrenders to your gravity. This surrender is not conscious. She may even fight it, resist it, deny it. But subconsciously, she cannot escape. The feminine craves containment. And when you master your own weakness, when you embody stillness, when you reverse validation, you become that container. She bends to your orbit because nature itself demands it. This is the final shift, from orbiting her to becoming the sun she orbits, from begging her validation to making her crave yours, from fearing her loss to realizing you were never meant to be owned by anyone but yourself. And when you reach this state, she knows. Even if she cannot say it, she feels it. This man cannot be broken. This man cannot be controlled. This man is gravity. Part 5. The male. Ascendancy. Living above the game. At some point, every man must ask himself, do I want to keep playing the game, or do I want to rise above it? Because here is the bitter truth. As long as you remain stuck in the endless cycle of proving, chasing, and reacting, you are not in control. You are a pawn on the board, and pawns get sacrificed. But there is another path, the path of ascendancy, the path where you stop reacting to women's tests, stop orbiting their moods, stop defining your worth by their approval, and instead build a life so vast, so magnetic, so unshakable that women have no choice but to enter your world on your terms. This is not about hating women. This is not about rejecting intimacy. This is about becoming a man whose value is so undeniable that no woman could ever make or break him. 1. Build the empire. Within, the first law of ascendancy is simple: internal first, external second. A man who masters his body but not his mind is still weak. A man who builds wealth but cannot master his emotions is still enslaved. The true empire begins inside. Discipline, clarity, and resilience. Train not just your muscles but your focus. Study not just the market but the philosophies that shaped history. Become not just financially independent but psychologically untouchable. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom is not external, it is internal. And once you own yourself, no woman, no rejection, no betrayal can take that from you. 2. Redefine the game. Most men live in a world where women are the prize. They spend their lives bending, proving, chasing. But in reality, the prize is the man who refuses to bend. Redefine the game by flipping the script. She is not the source of your worth. She is the addition to your already full life. She is not the center of your existence. You are. When you adopt this frame, everything changes. You stop negotiating for scraps of attention. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop seeking validation. Instead, you filter, you select, you choose. And this reversal creates an aura that women cannot resist. 3. Detach from outcomes. The man who is free is the man who does not cling. He does not need her answer, her approval, her presence. He is whole with or without her. And paradoxically, this is the man women fight hardest to keep. Why? Because his value is not conditional. His energy is not desperate. His presence is a gift, not a plea. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Detachment is not coldness, it is sovereignty. 4. Dominate through standards. Ascendancy is not passive, it is active. It means creating standards so high that only the worthy may enter. Standards for behavior, respect, intimacy. Standards that elevate, not degrade. Weak men lower their standards to keep women around. Powerful men raise them, and in doing so, filter out the chaos. Women orbit such men not because they are forced to, but because they crave the stability of his order. 5. Embrace the dark edge. Ascendancy is not all light. There is a shadow. A man must learn to embrace his darker instincts. The willingness to walk away, the capacity for silence, the refusal to be manipulated. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the recognition that you are not here to be consumed. You are here to lead, to command, to radiate strength that cannot be shaken. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are." And who you are is not the broken boy who needs constant approval. Who you are is the man who has faced weakness, transformed it, and risen above the game entirely. 6. Live above the game. When you ascend, you no longer ask, "What does she think of me?" You ask, "Does she deserve me?" You no longer fear rejection. You recognize it as redirection. You no longer crumble at tests. You see them as confirmations of your power. This is the life above the game. The life where women orbit you not because you manipulate them, but because your gravity is undeniable. A life where your empire is your focus, your strength is your foundation, and your presence is your legacy. And here lies the final irony. When you no longer need women, when you no longer chase, when you no longer play the game, that is when they chase you the hardest. Because true ascendancy is the rarest force in the modern world. And women are drawn to rarity like moths to flame. So rise above the noise, build your empire, live your philosophy, and let the world orbit around the gravity of your presence. If this message struck something deep in you, if you felt that fire inside your chest, then this is your place. Join the Brotherhood, subscribe to Manova, hit that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your story, your pain, your scars, they all belong here. And together, we rise above the game. Part 6. The intellectual closing, the final Brotherhood call. Every journey must end, but endings are not death. They are transformation. And here, brother, is where the transformation begins. You've walked with me through the shadows, the games women play, the weaknesses they exploit, the pain that cuts through a man's soul. You've stared into the mirror and seen the raw truth, that most of what you called love was dependency, most of what you called power was illusion, and most of what you called control was slavery to your own fears. But now you see clearer. This is not just about women. This is not just about relationships. This is about the man you are becoming, the man who refuses to be manipulated, refuses to be consumed, refuses to bow. This is about living a life with weight, with presence, with sovereignty. The philosophers, the Stoics, the dark thinkers all knew this truth. The world will try to own you. Women, society, weakness, all of it will reach for your leash, and most men hand it over willingly. They chain themselves with comfort, with validation, with fear of loss, and then they wonder why they are broken. But you, brother, are not most men, because the very fact that you are here, listening, consuming these words, tells me you are different. You want more. You demand more. You are not content to be a pawn. You want to be the player, the strategist, the center of gravity, the brotherhood of fire. Understand this. You are not alone in this path. Every man who has been betrayed, ignored, tested, humiliated, he carries the same wound. And yet, within that wound lies the seed of transformation. Pain is the forge. Weakness is the stone. And the man who uses them becomes unbreakable. This is why we built Manova. Not for boys who want quick tricks. Not for men who beg for shortcuts. But for warriors who want to ascend. Who want to transform their scars into armor. Their wounds into weapons. Their losses into strength. Here, we don't just talk. We don't just complain. We rise. Together. The final choice, at the end of this journey, you face a choice. You can walk away, nod your head, and return to the cycle, the orbit of weakness, the endless begging, the prison of validation, or you can step into a higher path. You can live with the philosophy of a man who knows his worth, who commands his reality, who bends the game instead of being bent by it. That choice is yours. But know this. Most men will never choose the harder path. They will settle. They will kneel. They will rot in the comfort of mediocrity. Do not be like most men. The eternal flame. What you've learned here is only the beginning. This is not an ending. This is initiation. You are at the threshold of a new way of living, where your weakness becomes strength, where your pain becomes purpose, where your presence becomes gravity. And remember this eternal law. Women respect men who respect themselves. Women orbit men who build empires. Women surrender to men who cannot be shaken. So ask yourself, what man will you be? The one chained by the illusions of the feminine, or the one who lives above the game, untouchable, undeniable, unforgettable? The world will test you. Women will test you. Life will test you. But every test is an invitation to mastery. Every challenge is a chance to rise. And every scar is proof that you survived, you endured, and you grew stronger. Brother, rise. And now, if this message struck you, if it spoke to your soul, if you felt that fire awaken in you, then this is your place. Subscribe to Manova. Join the Brotherhood. Hit the like button. Drop your story in the comments. Your scars are not shame. They are proof of your becoming. Share them. Own them. And together we rise.